Welcome, Mr. Amar Patel.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you for agreeing to talk with me. You are the vice presidential candidate of the American Solidarity Party.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and I found you because the American Solidarity Party identifies as a Christian Democratic Party, and I work for the Christian Democratic Party of Sweden.
Awesome, yeah.
Yeah, so I know I only have a few minutes with you, but I really wanted to ask you, in America, with the electoral system that you have, it's kind of difficult to even get a chance if you're not one of the big parties. Why is it important as a third party alternative still to run for office?
Yeah, a lot of times people will ask us why there isn't a Christian Democratic Party in the United States when they flourish in other parts of the world. And it's precisely for that reason. Our electoral system has, the voting system has first past the post, like the plurality victory, winner take all system, kind of makes us subject to a two-party system. And so that's why we can't really break through, well, we haven't broken through in the past. But there's factors of education. There are, when I talk to coworkers, even, so I'm a teacher by trade. I'm a high school teacher. And when I talk to coworkers, when they ask me, how'd you get involved in this? And what do you guys, what are your stances or whatever? And I'll start with, well, around the world, they have this concept of Christian democracy that's been around for 100 years plus.
Mm-hmm.
Has flourished in European and South American countries, and even I think Australia might have a party that they're trying to start. But we can't make headway because of the two-party system. And they'll say, well, what's that? And they don't even know that that's Germany's ruling party for several forever, right?
Yeah.
And so they don't even make that connection. And when I bring up principles like solidarity and subsidiarity,
Mm-hmm.
Words don't mean anything to them because our educational system is so, we basically use our students may understand the terms liberal and conservative,
Mm-hmm.
but really don't use them in the terms the rest of the world uses those terms in terms of.
Yes, I would say that is common also in the Nordic countries like Sweden, Denmark, Norway. That you don't really
Interesting,
talk. Yeah, it is. But we do have a multi-party system, so there are small Christian Democratic parties. Gaining a few seats, at least, in the government.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's one of the things that, as a third party in the United States, you're generally starting off running as an influencer or an educational campaign. You're kind of trying to get people to see a viewpoint that they're not going to see from the media, they're not going to see from the main two parties.
Mm-hmm.
And so, unfortunately, that kind of is where you're relegated. You're stuck in this kind of world of just trying to get your voice out there when no one's really listening. But we have the advantage of having the Christian Democratic parties around the world are very successful because there's lots of people who want a social economy, but also are fairly moderate to conservative in their social viewpoints relative to whatever the rest of the culture is. And so right now in the United States, that population of people, they sway. That's like the swing vote, essentially, for whichever candidate can capture the imagination of that group, which they don't necessarily philosophically or politically agree with, but at least if they can get their interest enough, that's what swings the election. I saw data that said that Donald Trump in 2016, loosely I would say the Christian Democratic vote, he won that vote 3-1 over Clinton. People were so shocked that he won the election, but that's a huge population that is politically homeless in the United States.
Yes, but what would you say if someone says that it's a waste of vote to vote for a third party? What would you say then?
Yeah, and I think that's it has been true. And so the biggest two parties, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Libertarians and the Greens in the United States, but in terms of the electorate, the Libertarians have been the third party for a long time, but they don't reflect any Christian Democratic principles. It's it's like the purely liberal party, right? The freedom of economy and freedom of in social concerns. And so, it's every man for himself. It's like the opposite of solidarity, right? So they don't really have. There's some people that follow that. There's a very small percentage, maybe 3 to 4% of people generally fall in that worldview. But typically anyone that's in a strong family, who believes in strong community and belongs to a church even, like, is going to understand that that's not how any adult operates, that
no,
free,
they don't.
anonymized individual,
Yes. But do you
And
think
so,
that there will be a difference? Will the system change in America for some time, do you think? Because there are these movements like free and fair elections and other
right. I think we
movements.
can be that. I mean, I dream big, right? I feel like, well, I always ask the party members to be visionaries instead of dreamers. We have a lot of people that have great ideas, and they dream like, oh, what if we could do that? And I want to challenge them. Well, let's do it then. Let's make it happen, right?
Yeah.
And we have the ability, as opposed to the libertarians have been trying to do it since the 1970s, and they haven't been successful in gaining more than a seat here or there.
Mm-hmm.
They'll generally do is they'll sneak into a Republican seat. So the Pauls, Rand Paul and Ron Paul, essentially are libertarians, but they've won their seats as Republicans, right? And I think that the reason for that is that, like I said, the electorate doesn't fall in that space. But in our space, there's a huge chunk of the electorate that would vote for, if we had the money and the influence, and we had a plurality system, like in the rest of the world, a multi-party system, I think Brian Carroll would have millions of votes, right? Because votes would count towards something and have the possibility. And really, I feel like there could be 3 effective parties like there are in the UK that would have to then build coalitions because of the people who naturally fall in our space.
But the concepts that you mentioned, like solidarity, subsidiarity, and also stewardship, what would they mean for America? What difference would they make?
And you know what? It doesn't mean anything right now, because people, like, the educational process is such a key thing at the beginning, right? But when we bring up subsidiarity, the libertarians will try to steal that idea because they're all about no or small government, right? As opposed to the appropriate usage of government at different levels. Like they always want to shoot for small, and they don't want to shoot for that kind of necessary, right? So we always that government is as small as possible, but as big as necessary for the purposes of justice. And in a libertarian mindset, which is generally the only third-party conceptualization, is that they feel justice means that the government just stays out of your business, right? But it just, at this stage, and even like coronavirus, COVID is a perfect example of where you need to have some authority can guide a global economy and a global village. You can't have people do whatever they want. And that's why the United States lags behind the rest of the world in a lot of our kind of health concerns with respect to COVID.
Yes, and also with the pandemic, it's been evident that people do care about each other with the solidarity thought. They do help elderly, they do go shopping and whatever that's needed for people that cannot be in the society because they are more at risk for the virus. Yeah,
exactly. And I think that more than anything, I think people do get, right? And we haven't been atomized completely to not care for each other. I think the one thing that, especially as a Christian Democratic Party, and for any believers, is that we're getting to the point where, in my opinion, that being a Christian, being a Muslim or a Jew or whatever, that's practicing, that's very serious about their faith, that the secularization of the world kind of blocks us from living that out heroically, right? So solidarity to me isn't just like saying that, oh yeah, I'm kind of with you. It's more of this, I will carry my cross with you, right? And so that sense of suffering that is necessary for the strength of relationships, I think that's what we're lacking, is that we get to the surface level of relationships and we see a lot of people saying, oh yeah, I'll go that far with you, but go any farther, and I think that's, to me, solidarity means more than that. Is that I'll go all the way with you.
Yes. That's the Aristotelian third kind of friendship, the deep friendship, and that is necessary for the basis for any society actually to thrive, I think.
Absolutely, and I think that's the educational process, and I think the culture, and at least in the United States, it teaches us to go the other way, right? It teaches us to, well, go as far as you can for yourself first, and then if you have time left and you're not tired, then see what your neighbor needs. And I think that's we're encultured that way, we're trained that way. And so, you know, that's a purpose of our party as well, is to call that out on the main two parties that don't follow through with their common good language.
In say like a local government or smaller nearer governments that you have, I mean, not the presidential seat,
sure.
Are you represented anywhere in America?
So I think because we started in 2016 with this conceptualization, trying to build a movement. And so one of the problems in our local, I mean, first of all, is like getting enough people together, because in a local race, you really need ground soldiers, right? You need social media doesn't really help you in a local government. You've got to have people that'll go door to door, because then that extra 100 or 200 or 300 votes is going to make a difference in that local election. Whereas in the national election, on a shoestring budget, you know, we're going to get thousands of votes. You're not going to get that unless you have a lot of volunteers. And so we're still not at that membership point, right, to get local. But you still need money at the local level. And you probably have more money at the local level, because that extra 50 votes is going to cost you $1,000, right, to get work out to them and all that kind of stuff. But I'm thinking we, more than anybody, like the libertarians and the Green parties, don't have many local candidates either, even though they've been around for a while, because at the local level, I think those Christian democratic principles are even more tangible, right? That subsidiarity aspect is so much more clear when you're physically talking about a neighbor that lives next door to you, down the street, you know, around the corner. You know, when you're talking at the national level, your neighbor means someone in the next state, right? It could be the person in a different region of the country. So I think as we grow, those will be opportunities as our membership becomes more knowledgeable themselves, and as the country gets to understand. I mean, I think the biggest problem is they just don't understand, why is everything getting so bad? People like want to point fingers at unrealistic things where we just don't care about each other anymore, right? And the culture is us.
That's sad. Yeah.
Right.
But I'm really happy that you did answer my call to talk about this today, and I really wish you all the best of luck. I know that you're going somewhere right now, and I just wish you a lot of votes and a lot of foot soldiers. So let's
thank
keep
you.
in touch.
I appreciate it. Yeah. So I mean, like I would say that one of the things is great that you were able to connect, and I apologize for not getting back sooner, but the fact that we've been trying to make inroads or connections with Christian democratic parties around the world. So I'm glad to have this connection. Now, how are you connected with like the folks in Germany or in the Netherlands or any other place?
Yeah, well, I did actually meet with the Konrad Adenauer Foundation just the other week, and we talked about perhaps if they are coming to Sweden, I would meet with them, or I would go to Germany and meet with them, because I'm working with the Christian democratic ideology in Sweden and trying to have a sort of revival for it. So
very good.
That's my mission, and as long as I can spread it, I have a global mission in mind.
Yeah, well, I'm excited then.
Yeah.
Well, if you ever have a Zoom call that is across several countries, you know, we would love to represent the United States and have that and join in on that global mission.
Definitely, we'll do that. Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Talk to you, Maria.
Bye.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.